We weigh in on the current state of play within the African National Congress top leadership structure, corruption allegations leveled against some of its top senior officials, and the party's step-aside policy. Analysts have argued that why wait for the party's Integrity Committee to make a move while decisions on corruption-implicated members were already made at the Nasrec conference. The ANC NECs have been meeting this afternoon, where the Veterans League stepped in to assist with final decisions on the party's step-aside policy. So for more analysis now, I am joined by Professor Sipho Siepe, who is a political analyst and professor at the University of Zululand. Prof, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Let's talk a little bit about, the agenda, the top priorities of this NEC meeting: defeating the COVID-19 pandemic, economic recovery and reconstruction, local government and service delivery, as well as all these relevant priorities to have. However, the possibility of the pandemic pushing debt levels close to 100% of GDP sooner than projected, one may wonder really if the government has a solid plan, or is it all reactionary at this point?
Well, it's been more a reaction. One of the issues that many people have raised was the slowness in which government took steps to address the issue of vaccine. And as many reports have actually emerged, as a result of that lackadaisical attitude, we are going to pay dearly. And there are some suggestions that even in terms of procuring our vaccine or the vaccine, we might be paying double. But it is because the government was sleeping. But part of it has to do with South Africa's own problems, which is that we don't have confidence in ourselves. We always wait to hear what others are doing, and then we follow suit. It is not an accident that we have not developed our own vaccine, but we are waiting for others to do it. It is the nature of the South African science, whereas or the government's lack of confidence in South Africa's own scientists, because we should have moved as quickly as many other countries have done.
I mean, we're talking here about being able to move as quickly as many other countries have done, but one may say that even the notion of even tackling corruption within its members, I mean, having a committee of ANC veterans comprising of former Treasurer General Matthew Sposa, former President Kgalema Motlanthe, tasked to assist the top six with working out the guidelines for the implementation of this policy regarding ANC members who face criminal charges. One would say that it appears that the ANC NEC members are divided over this, and one wonders how effective will the Veterans Committee be in devising policy that will actually be implemented? That's the problem, isn't it? The implementation of the policy that one comes up with.
Well, it is a problem, but one must also understand the challenge that is facing members of the ANC, because the NEC of the ANC did consult at least a number of lawyers, and what they got were 5 different legal opinions that were contradictory. And part of it, of the contradiction, can be seen to come from the ANC constitution itself, because while it is very clear about what needs to be done, when you read it in total, it also adds a certain rider. First, it says that all the people who are accused of corruption or have been reported to be corrupt must appear before the Integrity Committee to account. And if there's little or acceptable explanation, then those people must step aside or voluntarily step down. Or if they fail, they must be summarily suspended. But then the very same constitution says the ANC must also respect the constitution of the country, which is our supreme law. And the constitution of the country is very clear, because it talks about the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. So there you have a party that talks about political morality. Then it goes and appeals to the constitution of the country, which itself begins to say you cannot assume just because people have been accused and they've been reported to be corrupt that they are already guilty. So this is the predicament that the legal consultants found themselves unable to come up and give guidance to the ANC.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult when you have a party that is already factional, because you are not able to address that, because each party or people who speak, they begin to speak from the position of factional interest rather than interest of the party.
Well, Prof, one may say, and it was the actual DG, well, the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Jesu Duarte, was making the sentiments that they're just tired of ANC members taking the political party to court. So in this instance, where it appears as though it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, does the highest court of the land then not hold the final trump card with regards to what should happen to members who are implicated in corruption, members who belong, for example, to the African National Congress?
Well, the highest court is very clear. It's guided by the Constitution that all people in this country, whether they are charged or for as long as the court has not pronounced itself on their guilt, one cannot assume that they are guilty. And we must also be very careful here, because what tends to happen is that some of the decisions are driven more by the noise that comes from the media. I mean, one must remember how the NPA rushed to charge somebody like Duduzane Zuma just because there were already allegations made against him. But when the NPA went to court, the NPA was not able to sustain its own argument. They actually had to withdraw. So it is very important that our institutes of democracy and those who are entrusted with that responsibility act without fear or favor or prejudice. But and this is where the ANC says, just because a lot of noise has been made about certain people, it is very important that we seem to be subscribing to the Constitution of this country, which talks about the presumption of innocence. And I think the ANC, if it wants to move forward, it needs to separate that. It may drop the thrust on the Constitution and say, let us deal with issues of political morality, then the issues of law, because it is all about how the party is seen. If you are seen to be acting consistently to say where there is a whiff of corruption, we suspend members, then you say, please step aside, but we're not saying you are guilty, but we simply say, go and clean up your act. But it is this presumption of innocence that the ANC has a problem with, but it's not only the ANC, it is also some of the lawyers that were consulted.
Prof, we have to leave it there for this evening. Thanks a lot for joining us and giving some analysis on this. Political analyst, Professor Sipho Siepe from the University of Zululand.